Hello.
Hello. How are you doing? This is the Valerie and
Bennie.
Bennie podcast, Living Your Best Life.
Yeah. Yes.
So that is the current name that we have, and we're excited to be here. This is the podcast where we literally just want to help you live your best life. That's our goal.
Exactly. Just try to give you tips. Not that we are like these perfect people, but we really do try to live our best life.
Yeah.
So anything that will help someone out there is what we want to do.
Yeah, we really want to help you out there to live your best life. And it's certainly not because we're saying to imitate ours, because we're far from perfect. I know you are. Anyway, I'm kidding. So I know that we just aren't perfect, but I'm grateful for the life that I do have.
Exactly.
So, for sure.
Exactly. And I'm very thankful for my life. And I feel like you and I both have like the same mindset of we could begin our day kind of on a bad note, but we know that we want to flip it and make it a better day because it's a choice. And so I think just because we're not, doing this in our 20s or 30s. We're like I am in my upper 50s.
I'm in my lower 50s.
We have life experiences.
Yeah.
And there's been challenges and we've gone through them and know how to keep walking through it and with our head held high.
Yeah, or at least we hope to.
Yeah.
And well, speaking of that, this is one of the first times ever, I think, that we're having our little chat, and we did not hang out the week before.
Oh my gosh, you're right. That is right.
Yeah, we always end up doing something, it seems like, over the weekend, but there's
You were
a
out
reason
of
for
town.
that. That's the reason
Right.
why. So I thought I would tell you a little bit about our trip. So, it was all six of us that went. So that's Patty and I, my two daughters, and their significant others, and Iggy's one of those significant others. By the way, Iggy, our sound guy. Hi, Iggy. We're glad you're here. Thank you. And Andy, my son-in-law. So all of us went, and we went in the winter in Missouri, and so the winter in Missouri is quite a bit different than the summer. It's not like California, where basically the winter and the summer is 10 degrees. So, well, that's not true anymore, but it's
You mean 10 degrees different?
10 degrees different. Yeah. I mean, it's significantly different. It looks different. It's, because it's really gray in the winter in Missouri. There's there's no greenery. There's no nothing. Everything is gone dormant. And then you go now and everything is green and the weather is beautiful. Well, mostly beautiful. Actually, it was quite nice because we here had the gloomy weather, and it was sunny. It was warm. You could walk around. It was just a good time. But we were able to go canoeing. Have you ever done canoeing?
No. Wait. I think at Disneyland.
It's a small world.
Yeah. No, I don't think I have.
Disneyland. Are you referring to the little lake that's around that thing? Isn't that on a track?
Oh my!
Oh no, it's not on a track.
No,
I know which one you're talking about. There's like 8 or 9 of you or something like that. Yeah. But the canoe is like the size of a small
real
boat.
life,
That's so funny. That's like saying, "Oh yeah, I have climbed the Matterhorn at Disneyland."
But I haven't. I would never try to climb the Matterhorn at Disneyland.
At any rate.
But you jet skied. I saw that you jet skied.
I know.
Wait, jet skied?
Not jet ski.
Regular skied.
Water ski.
Water ski.
Yeah, water ski. So, yeah, that was a really cool thing. So I have not water skied in years. We would go to Missouri and we would get on the lake and do different things, and for various reasons I just didn't do it. And mostly it had to do with the fact that the kids loved inner tubing, and in order to ski you have to set up the boat a certain way, and not as many people can be on the boat because you have to get it going fast pretty quick and all these different things. And it was like, it just wasn't worth it because the kids really enjoyed doing it and I didn't care that much. But this trip, I was like, I really wouldn't mind trying. I don't know why. I just felt like I wouldn't mind going.
I can't remember on your video. Were you one ski or double?
I did two.
Okay.
And I used to ski with one, but it's harder. Well, it's not only harder to get up like for the skier, but the boat needs to go faster. And Poppy's boat, that's Patty's parents, my father-in-law's boat just wasn't itself. Because I would say it normally would be able to get me up, but it wasn't pulling the same way. So it's easier to get up on two. So that's kind of the reason why I did it. Cause it's more fun to ski with one. Cause you can, like when you turn out of it, you can kind of push off of the,
it's probably like
the wake.
Snowboarding versus like skiing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It is like that. So, cause you're able to push off and do things differently when you're on one. And when you're on two, you still get to do stuff. It's not like you can't do anything, but I will say this, I was feeling really good about myself. And then I went out of the wake, and you go out to the side, and then you push across, and then you go across, and it felt like, wow, I'm doing this great.
Right.
And then I see the video, and it looks like a 155-year-old man crawling across the water. It really didn't.
I didn't see it like that, but I'm sure people that are doing it all the time.
I felt like I was a whip. I knew I wasn't going as fast as I possibly could, but I also felt like it felt faster than the video.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you haven't done it for years and you're like, oh my God, can I even get up?
Yeah,
that's what she said. No, just kidding.
Well, you know what's funny too is that when I was in there and I was doing the wake thing, Iggy actually got this video. He thought I was going to eat it, but when I realized, okay, I'm going to try and go a little bit faster, is when we got into a certain part of the lake that was like way more choppy, and it was really, really bouncing, and I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Honestly, water skiing, it's not like is it called knee boarding or whatever? There's different kinds of things that you can do on water, and waves are helpful to some degree because you're kind of jumping off of them. Water skiing isn't one of those things. You kind of want it to be like glass.
Right.
And so it started off pretty good, and then it got ugly as we kept going, and I did it enough. So I did ski twice. I think I only did, actually Trinity did get me videoed, and the other one too, but it didn't matter. It's the same thing basically. Yeah. But we also went canoeing, and I learned all this stuff from Patty because she did this stuff, or Patty's family, because we didn't
do anything like this.
Did you? Have you ever been camping? Really?
Yeah, with the Hartleys.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
and then I did as like when I was first married, we went with like a group of people from our church. We would go a couple of places. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because I remember, and I remember Gary saying, "What did you do?" My father-in-law, did you guys do any of these kind of things? I was like, my dad's idea of outdoor living was a motel versus a hotel. It's like, so, and not that we were rich, it's just that he doesn't do that kind of stuff. Yeah. So canoeing is just fun in that you go on a river. It's a very quiet river. This is not whitewater rafting. Yeah. This is just a quiet river. You still have to navigate some things, as Iggy and Trinity learned in their canoe. And he's laughing because we saw them in the beginning doing circles and running into things and different things like that. No, sorry. Still doing circles at the end, he says. Yeah, it was kind of funny because, but people learned, and that was another thing that was interesting, is that Trinity was so young when we stopped canoeing that she had never been one of the paddlers, because she was always in the middle between Patty and I. Because at one point it was me and Patty and both kids were in the canoe, and then Ashley got older and she wanted, but we couldn't. She couldn't be with anybody herself, so she did a kayak.
Oh, right.
And then Trinity was always in the middle. So this is the first time Trinity actually had to do stuff too.
I've done kayaking. Is that kind of like canoeing?
If it's on a slow river, because there's the fast kind of kayak.
No, I do a slow. It's slow, Long Beach.
Yeah. It's very similar, except in there you're actually driving yourself, so to speak. In this case, the river kind of takes you along because the river just keeps going. I mean, you have to. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean to say that you don't do any work, especially because
I feel like it's like you have to do more work, because if you don't, if right.
Well, it depends on how you really want to go slow. The idea is take in the nature, take in everything, just check everything out. And it was just so,
Well, that's kind of nice then. It's kind of just
so-
moving you along and seeing it versus like having to work at it the whole time.
Well, and then you do have to work at it when you come to certain points because it starts to turn, and then or the water gets much shallower, which creates more speed, which means that's when you have to control. And that's when
They were doing
I'm looking at
circles.
Iggy because or you run into a branch, or you run into
Right.
something, you run into the side of
Oh my
the
gosh.
creek or whatever it is, and it's kind of fun. But you know, it's really cool just to get out there, to spend time together. I don't know. I read this one time years and years and years ago that families that, you know, there's the old families that pray together, stay together. Well, they also say families that camp together, stay together. Like somebody did this statistic and said, what is it that they tried to find out about families that were healthy or perceived as healthy and they happy and all that kind of stuff, and they were close knit, those kind of things. What do they do? And so then maybe this is something we can imitate, right? And one of the things that they noticed that a ton of people do is they camp. And the interesting thing is it's not obviously camping,
Right.
because if it was just camping, then that means everybody who lives in a city is as good as, you know,
Right.
don't forget it.
Yeah.
Your relationship is
It's
over and
over.
you're never going to be close. So
No, I get it. It's like the close knit because you got to work together to do stuff. And yeah, it's like a team effort.
yeah. In camping, you really have to have a team effort. And then the other thing in camping is, which kind of goes into my discussion that we're going to have today, which, by the way, I don't think we ever said this. This is the podcast where one of us comes up with a topic and we don't necessarily tell the other person what the topic is until the podcast. And then
Right.
we just dialogue about it. So,
Right.
but one of the things that they said that really is helpful is when you're camping, you have to, it's the team idea, but you inevitably have things go not according to plan.
Right. Of course.
And now you have to figure
Work
out
together and yes.
how do we deal with this
Right.
not going together. So for instance, being in a canoe, and it's really funny because my mother-in-law, and I thought it was brilliant. Actually, we were giving, or I should say people were giving guidance to the new people on how to
Not go around in circles.
yeah, exactly. And how to navigate this and that,
Yeah.
and trying to talk about basic things. But then she said something I thought was really cool, which was, she said, and remember this, I don't, Iggy, you can help me, but she said something like, don't start to get angry with the person in the canoe. Or how did she word it? Do you remember? But it was something to that effect, right? It was basically,
Like, be patient with each other because it's everyone's first time or something.
be patient with each other because it's everybody's first time. And I thought that was really kind of brilliant because the truth is that when you're in that situation and you are typically the person in the back of the canoe is steering, and the person in the front of the canoe basically has to do what the person in back says. Like, hey, go on the left, go on the right, stop, you know,
Right,
or go
right.
back, you know, whatever it is.
Right.
And that's what, and the person in the back is really responsible for doing that. Well, quite frankly, like I'm in the back and there's times when I don't know what to do.
Sure.
So I'm just saying it. And then all of a sudden it doesn't quite go
Yeah,
as
you're like, okay,
planned.
never mind.
And so, yeah. And so
Yeah.
it's like, okay, go the other way. Or
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure it out. And then new people, especially, they definitely don't know what they're
course.
doing and they're trying to figure it out. And so you're trying to navigate it. And it's very easy
To get frustrated. Yeah.
and start to judge people and get mad and why did you do this? Because I sent Patty into at least 2 trees, like where and what I mean by that is the trees are overhanging
Yeah.
the river, and it's like, yeah, there was a place that I could have gone like to the left, there's a place I could have gone to the
Right.
right, but the canoe was going right for those leaves. I'm
Leaves.
like, just
Just
put your
put your
oar
head
up,
down.
put your oar up and put your head down, because that's where we're going.
That's funny.
That's just all there is to it. And it's not like dangerous, it's
Yeah.
just a little bit irritating, right?
So it's legit. Like, I mean, you guys it's a 2-man canoe.
2-man canoe.
So
Well, you could
it's-
put more, but only 2 people are actually canoeing. Like I said, Trinity, little kids could be in the middle.
So like, have you seen the canoe races? Like, you know, I'm trying to think of why I've watched these on TV, but there's like 8 men in it. Like a lot of colleges do it that have,
Yeah,
Do you
they
know-
call that.
or is it 6 men? Or I
They
don't
call
know.
that crew. I think they call that crew,
Oh,
like Harvard.
but it
Yeah.
is. But like you said, like the guy in the back is the one directing everyone.
Those guys are, that's a totally different level. So,
Well, I realize it's a different level, and I'm not going to go have you race them. I'm just saying, like, but it's the same thing with you. Like, you're watching it and trying to tell the person in front of you what to do. They are definitely on a different level. I totally, but I always have found that interesting that that guy was just in the back. I say just in the back doing that, where it was solely he sees what you should be doing. And these people all have to listen. But you're not talking about just one person in front of you listening. You're talking about a crew.
yeah. And then he's also, if I remember correctly, but I don't want to claim to be an expert in that. But the other thing that they're doing is they're trying to keep them on rhythm, to keep them going and all that stuff.
Yes.
And it really is a team thing. If Patty doesn't do, if she just decides to do something else, then it's going to make me do something else. And we might not get the results that we hope to achieve, right? So, which would be, let's just stay in the river and not go along the side. And
I can imagine how it must be, because even just, what is it called that I said I did? Kayaking. I could imagine if there was a second person in there, and as I'm doing this, and then they start to either drag their oar or they're going in the other direction or whatever. That could be frustrating.
It could be frustrating. And especially like we said, with new people, even I remember telling Iggy this, that the first couple turns, it was like I had to relearn, okay, what am I doing again? I mean, I knew the basic things, but there were times when I was like, this isn't going the way I thought if I did this, it would do that, but it didn't. So I had to figure it out. And by I don't know, by a quarter of the way, third of the way in, I was like, okay, I think I got this again. But Patty's been doing it forever. So she also
she
trusts
should have
me.
been in the back.
Yeah. Well, she doesn't have the strength. That's the thing for her, because she could have, but she doesn't. She actually doesn't want to. Because a lot of it, the person in the front, because we're going down in a real chill way, we're not trying to go fast. The person in the front really only has to participate like in doing it when you want to make a certain maneuver.
Right.
Otherwise, they don't have to do anything.
Oh, okay.
They just can sit there and chill, which she loved. Yeah. So this goes into my discussion because what I wanted to talk to you about was, and I don't have a bunch of notes on how we're going to talk about this. So I just thought we would discuss it and see where it goes.
We can chat.
Yeah.
You know us.
Yeah. We've done that before. So what I wanted to bring up is conflict. How do you deal with conflict, and do you find yourself in situations where there's a lot of conflict, and what do you do in situations where you're dealing with conflict?
When you say conflict, do you think are you looking at it like a difference in opinions or like a disagreement? Excuse me.
It could be either. I mean, honestly, I'm just referring to a conflict, whatever. So you can choose what you want to talk about. I bet you will end up talking about both. But I mean, okay. The most common things are going to be conflict at work. Like you have a situation at work and someone wants to do something different than the way you want to do it. Obviously, there's conflict at home because your spouse or significant other doesn't want to do things the way you want to do, or maybe they even did it a different way than you had planned. And so, and then you obviously have family conflict, which we won't go there. Yeah. But everybody has.
So are you asking me how I deal with it or what I think of conflict?
Both.
Okay. For me, as we've said in many other podcasts, I really try to be like the glass half full person. So even if there's a conflict, especially at work, I don't want bad vibes at my job. You know what I mean? So if there ever is something that arises, arises?
I think it's a rosen. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
But if there's something that, in
if
fact,
anything arises,
there is conflict at my job right now we're on summer break right now, but there was this last year. And, I addressed it with this person because I feel like for me, I feel like if there's something that bothers me, or if there's something that I feel like was taken out of context, or there was a disagreement, I really do choose and go to the person and address it personally So there's not a lot of hearsay going around. Okay. And then let's just say that conflict isn't, how do I word this? Resolved. Thank you. I end up just, and this is seriously what just happened, and it's happened with me and a few other coworkers with one person, sadly. We're work partners. I don't need to be any more than that kind of a thing, where this person. So I guess in that particular situation, I did address it, and I wanted to get that person's opinion. That person did not receive me going to them and talking to them in person about it. She did not receive it well at all. And so for me, I said, okay, well, I just want you to know there's no hard feelings on my end. The ball's in your court, and we're just going to move on and be work colleagues. And so that's kind of how it ended up being. I was neither, I said hi, we were cordial, and just that's kind of how it was.
So can I ask you, when you said that she didn't take it well, is it because she disagreed with the way you perceived whatever the situation was, or because she just...
Well, in all honesty, there's a huge backstory to this person. This person has had conflict in many of the schools. This was her first year at our school site, and we didn't know this about her, or I didn't know about her. And everything seemed to be going well at first in the first week or two, and then literally in the third week she had a conflict with one of the teachers, and we were just like, oh well, okay, let's just move on from there. Then she had the conflict with the principal. We're like, oh okay, let's move on. And then it became a conflict with the learning center teacher, and it was just like one of these things where it was like every time, I mean, she got the union involved, so it was a big deal. Yeah. So when I went to her and said, I'm not a part of whatever it is you think these people are doing to you, which in all honesty, nobody was doing anything, but I just wanted to let her know, no hard feelings with you. No, she's like, but she lumped me in a group and just said, I'm just coming to do my job. I don't want to,
I see.
So, yeah.
So that's a different, maybe a kind of I don't want to call it a one-off situation, but because there are people. So for our listeners out there, you have people in your life that there is no pleasing them.
Yes.
It was what I'm
That's
getting.
and that's why I said there was a history with this person. That conflict really wasn't resolved with anybody. Like, it really had to be just very, very like work related information when we talked to each other. And so, and not just me, we were fine. Like, I still said hi, but there was still so much conflict with other people, and I don't like that environment. And it was just like there was a wrench in our whole system, and it was kind of a bummer. But in terms of conflict at home, I like to address whatever it is and get like, this is how I'm feeling, why do you, kind of thing. I don't avoid it. I think you and I, at one point I've never shied away from saying this is bothering me, or this, or what did, you know what I mean? Right. If that makes sense. I like to resolve it. I don't want something that is either a disagreement or like a conflict be unsettled.
Yeah. What I like what you said, it's interesting, like regarding the teaching situation is, your work situation is that you dealt with what you could deal with. Mm-hmm. And the rest of it is what it is.
Yeah.
You can't really do anything about it. And so even though she didn't necessarily, I don't know what the right word is, agree or didn't receive what you said well, mm-hmm. At that point, you have done your part. And
exactly.
And you can now continue in the situation with a sense of freedom, mm-hmm. because you've done what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And you may never be good friends with this person
right.
ever again. And that's a reality.
And it's interesting because many, many years ago, if that kind of thing happened, and again, her issue wasn't even really with me, but she lumped me in with other people, and that had nothing to do with me. But that it would have bothered me to the core. Mm-hmm. Like, I would have just felt like, oh, I don't like this being unsettled. And at this point, like you said, I just had to say, okay, I did my part. I did what I could do. She did not want to receive it, engage. She didn't want to like participate in the same vibe that I had. So I said, I just got to move on. And I needed to be there for the kids in a good mindset. And also my other coworkers that we all had a great relationship with. I couldn't let that bug me. But I mean, you're right. This is kind of a one-off because, as everything unfolded over the year, she had issue with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so I don't think anything would have made her happy.
Yeah. And that's kind of that's the one-off part of it.
Yeah.
But I guess why I brought it up is because conflict is a reality that I think everybody deals with at one level. And I think it has to do with, how would you say that we were raised to deal with conflict?
Well, I mean, if we're going to go with mom,
Yeah.
mom raising, I think she always raised us to be able to speak our mind, talk it through kind of thing. But she always stopped it when there was like disrespect in there or, or it got heated or whatever. Then it was like, but she was always very good about trying to resolve. And,
yeah, I don't remember things hanging over with mom for sure. I mean, dad, I definitely don't, there was a season of time when for dad, it was pretty rough for him because the way we dealt with conflict with dad, I think was largely, we don't deal with it.
Exactly.
It was just anger. And then it turned into, the way I remember it, and you guys don't remember this this way, but it was 3 days later we went out for ice cream.
Right.
And that's the way,
he took you to ice cream. He
I
didn't
know,
take Stephanie and I.
apparently he didn't.
No, but you're absolutely right. There's two different people living in the same house and they dealt with it so differently. Mom always, to this day, lets you talk to her through, lets you talk it through, speak your mind. But if disrespect ever got involved, she shut it down, said, this isn't, acceptable. I'm not. And I remember even times where like, just, going back to like high school days and me wanting to go somewhere to I wanted to go to a concert, Journey. And I remember wanting to go so bad. All my friends were going. And I literally mean all my friends were going. And no, you're too young. You're too young. And I'm just like, but everybody's going. And I was so mad. When she talked to me, she said, I want to know how you feel. Like there was conflict there for sure. But she didn't just say, okay, go to your room.
Right.
She definitely let me tell her how I felt about it. At the end of the day, I still wasn't allowed to go to that concert. As soon as all my friends got back from the concert, she drove me over to that particular friend's house where we could all have a sleepover. So she drove me over there like at 10:30 at night to have a sleepover with them. But I just wasn't allowed to go to the concert.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's so interesting and so really the thing that I'm getting at is that, I shouldn't say I'm getting anywhere. I just think it's interesting that people deal with conflict in different ways, right? Because I remember when I was growing up, like you just said, mom was, and I'm not your normal, your typical, for lack of a better word, your stereotypical man.
Mm-hmm.
I talk way more than your stereotypical
You talk
man.
a lot?
Shut up. And I, not just do I talk a lot, but I'm not afraid to express feelings.
Yeah.
And that is something that's kind of foreign for a lot of men. They don't know how to express themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And when they do, I think we talk about this in another podcast, often every emotion is anger.
Yes.
Even though it's not.
Right.
There's other things, but the only emotion they know by definition, so to speak, is anger.
Mm-hmm.
So when they feel something, they express it. I'm angry when they're not. They could be sad. They could be envious. They could be frustrated. They could be so many different things, but instead they just say they're angry. But that all, without getting too much into the weeds in that, what I want to bring up is the fact that, conflict is something that happens in our lives with, like I said, work and family and whatever. And based on, like, we had a mom who was talk to me. Mm-hmm. And then we had a dad who was, we just don't talk to him for a few days. I remember going days, a few days without, it was
until like you said, he felt bad, and then he would either say, okay, you're not grounded anymore, or take you to ice cream or whatever.
Ice cream.
But
and then what's funny is that what was really funny is that mom, if she said we were grounded for a week, she didn't care how she felt.
It was a week.
It was a
full
week. It was a week.
Yeah.
Dad would ground us for 3 months and then 3 days later say, I'll forget it.
Yes,
It's over.
exactly.
It's over. And
Exactly.
it was like, because I think he realized that he grounded us in anger. Whereas my mom said it was a week. She
thought about it.
Thought
and
about
she gave you
decided
the,
it. And this was not an emotional response.
And it's very interesting that you said something about, I don't know if this is where you were going because I feel like I cut you off, but how you're raised maybe is how you might deal with conflict. because I think about Peter too, our like, not so much now, but in our earlier days of marriage, he handled conflict the way his dad handled conflict. And I was handling conflict the way my mom handled conflict. It didn't jive. You know what I mean? Because I'm trying to talk to him, but he was like, we don't talk about it. We stop, or he gets mad, or you know what I mean? Or, and I think about even when, he started, he came in and the kids would argue about something. They wanted something, they did. And his thing was, he didn't want to hear what they had to say. You stop talking there, you know, and,
oh, right.
And so it was one of those things.
It was more like, hey, I've made a decision. I don't want to hear your feelings.
Exactly.
About it. It's done.
And so I had to talk to him and say, for a few years, I mean, they were 4 and 6. So at this point, it's like, I've taught them that they can express their feeling. It's not going to change my opinion, or it might. You never know.
Right.
What if they have a good,
legitimate point?
Yeah, but at the same time, I want them to express themselves, and it took him a few years. It did, because I think, and he even said, I don't know why I do that, and then it occurred to him one day, because that's what my dad did, and so you kind of just do what you know.
That's right, and I think the thing is that if we don't break some of the patterns that are unhealthy, then we carry this, I'm going to use the word resentment. I don't know if that's the right word, but we carry this with us everywhere we go. Mm-hmm. And we think it's not affecting our relationships, when in fact it's like little bricks on top of bricks and tops of bricks. And it actually puts a barrier between us. And that's the reason why I kind of wanted to bring up conflict is that it's something that I feel like, being Gary and Carla, I love my in-laws, and actually I love Patty's family, but they're different. They're different than the way we live.
Right.
We live in, for one, it's just the Midwest versus California. There's just so many different things, and it's very easy to go to have conflict and then not actually address it. Now, I didn't per se have conflict, but that whole canoe illustration that we're talking about is, it's like something can come up, and if we don't address these things, then like you said, I don't like the milkiness in the air. It's like, I don't like that. I like to address it as well.
Yeah.
Patty grew up where, and I think I could say this without any issue because he's 100% different, is Gary, my father-in-law, would blow up. He'd get very, very angry. And so what was interesting is we are loud. Like, I don't know if you are at home when you talk, but... I'm
actually not loud.
But when I first
when I party, I'm loud, but...
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And you laugh really loud, randomly. But I remember Patty, when I would get upset, like I would be expressive, what I'm going to call expressive. Meaning,
does she think you were getting mad?
And she was totally thinking I was mad. And so then what happened with her was anytime I was loud, she shut off. She shut down, because that's what you had to do in her family. Because when dad was mad, it's over.
Right.
So you just have to give him his space, because this is not going to end well.
Yeah.
So every time I did that, it triggered her to say, this is the way it is. And it's kind of one of these things where and then I didn't help the situation, because as the further she went into her shell, the more I expressed and the more I got upset, because I'm like, I want to know what's going on, Mom. I want to know what's going on.
Yes.
I want to understand your feelings.
Yes.
I want her. And she would just further go in her shell, and she can't even talk. She literally can't talk.
Right.
She would just kind of shut off. And it took us a while to learn a couple things. One thing was she had to learn how to say to me, okay, you're talking loud, and this is making me want to...
I'm uncomfortable.
I can't think.
Yeah.
Now, when she would say that, especially in those days, it would like piss me off, because for one, I was like, I'm not being that loud. If you want to hear loud,
yeah.
I can get loud. And so that's number one. And the number two thing is like when you're in the middle of a thought, that's not what you want to hear.
Yeah.
But we had worked it out that I needed to do this.
Right.
And so then I would stop and I would say, I'm not mad, but I am frustrated by whatever the circumstances were. Yeah. And then, likewise, though, she had to start trying to tell herself, he is not my dad.
Yeah. Yes.
He is not that person. And, 30 some years later, I forgot how long we've married. We are, now we know that dance really well. I know I can't be loud.
Right.
And she also knows when I'm loud.
Right.
That he's Benny.
Right.
That's just who he is.
Right.
He's just excited right now or whatever.
Yeah.
And likewise, I had to learn that when she goes into her shell, that it doesn't mean she doesn't want to talk to me, because that's what happened to me.
Of course.
I just felt like, you don't like me. You don't love me. You don't care about me. You don't want me
working this out. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't care about working this out. That's perfect. And I would say, and so I had to learn, no, she needs a little space.
Right.
She needs to be able to do it.
Patty's very loud now.
She is. She has no problem expressing herself. But I think that all comes down to feeling safe. And when we're talking about conflict, there's two things that are, and this goes to your question that you said earlier, which is, okay, who are we talking about? Because if you're not around safe people, I think Patty needs to, there is a certain mechanism that we have to say, I'm not going to put myself in a situation where someone's going to stomp on me.
But don't you feel like, and I'm sorry, I'm just curious, as you were talking, I was thinking about, when we were talking about conflict, I like that, okay, I'm going to say this, it's going to come off weird, but I like that we can have a conflict. I like that we can address a conflict, if that makes sense. Like
you and I,
or even like with mom or whatever. I feel like, or even with Patty, like I feel like if there was something with Patty, I can go to Patty and say, okay, well, this bothered me, or she came to me one time because something I did bothered her, and she came to me, and I felt like, okay, I'm so glad you came to me, because it wasn't like that, or that's not how I felt, and I'm sorry if I made you feel like that, kind of thing, And then you take like Peter's family, and God, they are the most fun family, like the siblings all together having fun, but they will never address a conflict ever.
Yeah,
they will shove it. And I remember at one point, there was some kind of an issue going on, and I remember saying, well, why don't you go talk to that person? Or why don't you, or maybe I asked Peter, why doesn't she go? They're like, they're not going to address that. They're not going to, it's just going to, it's exactly.
Yeah.
And so in some ways, it's like, I think there's conflict everywhere. But I feel like in general, we have to learn, just like you and Patty did, how to address the conflict, because we're not going to all address it the same way, but it's very vital to a relationship to be able to not just shove it under the rug.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because what's interesting is we think if we shove it under the rug, it's going to resolve itself.
Yeah.
And all it does is get a dirty rug, and it ultimately makes it so that, and here's the other thing is, it doesn't just affect that relationship.
Right.
See, I think that's what happens, is that we think, well, I just don't even care about that person, so I'm not going to deal with it.
Right.
And then what we don't realize is that resentment, that conflict, that issue, whatever it is, we carry into the next relationship. We carry it into every relationship, and we start developing patterns of communication based on that conflict.
Absolutely.
And
just
so,
like Patty did with her dad with you.
Yeah.
And then when you guys divorce, and she's going to do it with her. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But no, it's very true. And to that point, like with my ex-husband, there was things that I took in, and I immediately thought that that Peter was going to react. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so if you don't resolve these little things, especially as kids, like if you're having these conflicts with your children, definitely give them tools to be able to learn how to resolve it.
Yeah. And I think this is the key that, where I'm going with this thing, I guess. I really didn't have a plan, but I think the real plan is we need to, I think, dealing with conflict. Now, here's the thing. In certain situations like this woman at your work, maybe, it's not about resolving the conflict so that there isn't any conflict anymore, because apparently there is conflict in your situation still, in that situation. But you are not carrying that weight anymore, because you have resolved yourself too.
Yes.
Because that's all we can do. We can't control the other person. We can only control our thoughts, our minds, our feelings, what we're doing with it.
Because we talked about on one of the other podcasts about controlling a situation. Like, I don't have the control of that situation, because she's definitely led it by the horns, whatever.
Grabbed it by the horns.
By the horns, yeah. But I can control how I handle it. And I did my best to handle it. And then, like I said, the ball was in her court and she doesn't want to give anymore. So it's like, okay, well.
Yeah, but
yeah.
you're clear.
Yes.
That you're, for lack of a better word, the carpet is clear on your
Yes,
side. And
exactly.
you're not carrying that into the next relationship. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to see her at the next event and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad to see you. It's like you're just going to be like, okay,
We're colleagues.
We're
yeah.
colleagues,
just,
and that's it.
Yeah.
And we resign ourselves to the fact that that's who they are. That's who they've chosen to be. And I am choosing to not be a part of that.
Right. Exactly.
That toxic,
That's
relationship
exactly what
or
it
whatever
is.
it
And
is.
yes.
Yeah, but we need to make sure that we stay focused on what we can control, and then we need to make sure, in my opinion, that we just need to keep our rug clean.
Clean.
Yeah, clear is kind. I love that little saying from Brene Brown. Clear is kind, and what I mean by that is being clear with what's going. I like the way you approached it too, because when we're dealing with conflict, it's not helpful for me to go to you, Valerie, and say, if you and I had a conflict and say, well, Valerie, you always, or you make me feel this way, because you can't make me feel this way. I can choose to feel that way,
Right.
but you can't make me feel
Right.
anyway.
Sure.
But I can say, when you said this,
Yes.
it made me feel this
Exactly.
way. And then you at that point can say, you know what? That's exactly the way I wanted you to feel. And then I'm going to say, oh, Valerie's not the person I want to hang around anymore. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or you're going to say, oh my goodness, I didn't mean that
That's
at all.
exactly. And a lot of times things are just simple conflicts are because of that, a misinterpretation or a misunderstanding or whatever.
Especially in the day and age.
That's why it's very important to go to the person.
Go to the and that's the other thing that's interesting. What we often want to do is talk about that person. And when we talk about that person to other people, it really often makes a smaller issue a huge
They add fuel to that
issue.
fire.
Yeah. And now all of a sudden it becomes a much bigger
Yeah.
issue. So we have to be careful. But so I guess if I'm going to say what would you say to our listener? What do we want to leave? What do we want them to leave
I mean,
with?
I guess it's kind of what we just summarized right at the end there. Like if there is any kind of conflict that you feel you're having with any one person, I think it's very important to go to that person and not accuse them of something, but be more like, what you did or what you said made me feel like this. And then it opens a door for the person to hopefully want to have a conversation about it, not be defensive about it.
Yeah. And they might share something that's legitimate later.
Totally.
Well, actually, the reason why I said that is because this happened and it made me feel this way.
Sure.
And now there's a reciprocal
But there's communication
conversation.
now.
That's
Yes,
right.
exactly.
And we're trying to deal with it. And I guess what I'll add to that, because you kind of summarized the conversation, I'm just going to add something that we didn't talk a lot about, but I think it's important, is if you're a parent out there, resolve things with your kids. Don't be afraid to say you're sorry. And I guarantee you they're going to respect you more if you say you're sorry, if you need to. And then don't be afraid of their feelings. Sometimes we're so afraid of our own feelings and we're so afraid of how they feel and we want to protect them from their feelings. And then, so therefore we suppress them from actually sharing them. And then they learn that pattern that it's not good for me to do this. So allowing them to share their feelings does not mean that you don't set your boundaries and you set your rules and you do your thing. You need to do that. But allowing them to express them and you guys dealing with conflicts in a positive way.
And the other thing,
helpful.
I love what you just said. I know we're trying to tie this up real fast, but if you're a parent and you have done something to where you feel like you need to apologize to your child, it's not saying that you were wrong or that you were, the kid was right, whatever it is. A lot of times a lot of my apologies for my children were how I handled the situation.
Exactly.
And it wasn't, and it didn't have to be like, well, you're right, so now I'm going to apologize. No, it's, we are the adults and we are trying to teach our kids how to go out and be their best person. So, apologizing for how you handled something, like, I'm not perfect.
I still do that. I mean, I still have to, because I still get excited and I'll have to say to Trinity, who's sitting here, and I'll say, I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to get excited. I didn't need to do whatever. So I still have to do that. So.
Yeah.
Well, we do need to wrap it up. You've been listening to us for a long time. Thank you so much. We just want you to live your best life.
We do.
So I hope that you can take something away from this.
I do. And I hope that if you find this helpful at all, to please like and subscribe and share this with somebody. It really helps.
Really helps us if you can like, subscribe, post it on your social media posts so that everybody can see it. Iggy, thank you so much for being our sound guy, making it sound good, doing all the stuff that is required, which I don't even know how to describe because I am completely clueless.
I know.
And so we're glad that you're here, and we'll see you next week.
Alrighty. Bye.
Bye.